Hi, everyone. Hello. Uh, let's take a look at these air conditioning gauges. I want to show you a few things that are particular to AC gauges that maybe some of the videos I've provided haven't shown you. First of all, when you begin to use a set of AC gauges, the first thing you want to do is make sure all of the lines are tight and all of the valves are closed. So let's first take a look at that. You have your low pressure line in blue here. You have your high pressure line in red here. And this is the feed line. This is a line that you would attach externally if you wanted to do something through the high side or the low side. So this line normally is not used, but it is open. It is open to the refrigerant. So you can see the low line is attached in the back here. The high side line is attached in the back here. And then the yellow feed hose is attached here as kind of all three of these are more or less placeholders. You have your low side gauge, which, trying to get the right angle here. Your low side gauge, which goes down to 0 psi, and then it has a vacuum gauge built in, which goes down to 30 inches, and your high side gauge, which goes from 0 all the way to 500. The low side gauge goes up to 120. So if we were going to use this gauge set, the first thing we do, as I mentioned, is make sure everything was closed and tight. So these valves closed are right-hand turn. So this valve is open right now. So we're going to close that. This valve, low side, is already, well, no, it's open too. So both of these valves are open, which is a way the gauge should never be left. These should always be closed. When you open the high side of the low side, what you open is, like if this is connected to the high side, you've opened this line, which has your refrigerant in it, the high side, you've opened it to the center yellow line. So if you happen to have the yellow line off of the gauge set, just laying there, like some people, they don't screw this on here. In fact, some gauge sets don't even have a place for the yellow hose, it just hangs. So if that were open and these valves were open as they were, all your refrigerant would suddenly blast out as soon as you open the valves. So that's a good thing to check. These are both off. The next thing you want to check, make sure all of the lines are tight, even though we, expect these to all be closed, even though the gauges, by the way, are showing about 100 psi in them right now, which means the gauges have about 100 pounds of refrigerant, or 100 psi of refrigerant in them, not 100 pounds, but 100 psi pressure. They've got very little refrigerant, whatever the hoses will hold. But we want to make sure that these lines are tight when we go to connect them to the car. Now, I just tried this high side, and I got a little bit of turn out of it. Here's the middle hose. It's good and tight. Here's the low side hose. Go around the back and make sure the yellow line is tight, and it was just a tiny bit loose. Then, your valves, you need to be sure these are closed. Now, this is something you have to get used to with AC valves. Closed means backed up all the way. In other words, turned in reverse, counterclockwise. And what that means is this stub in the middle there, that what that does is that pushes down on the Schrader valve to open the valve on your car. So we back that up by closing this valve. If we were to open it, we'd push this forward. And then that needle valve would push out. And then when we connect it to the car, it would immediately open the Schrader valve. But as a matter of fact, if we leave these open, if we leave these screwed out, it won't let us connect to the car very easily. So we back these all the way back, which pulls that center stub there all the way in, and then leave it attached to the gauge set. Same side with the low, same thing with the low side. We're going to back it all the way up counterclockwise. So when these are backed up, they're shut, or at least they're not ready to release refrigerant. So everything is tight on this set, and it would be ready to connect to the car. So I'm going to pause the video here for a second. Okay, so I have a AC line here. It has a high side fitting on it, and I want to show you how to attach the AC hoses to your car. The videos show people attaching them, but they don't really go into much detail. To attach a hose, it's very similar to attaching a quick disconnect on an airline. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this back. See if I can grip this here. I'm going to pull it back. I'm going to start to put it over the end of the line. Okay, I can release it. It's not quite attached yet. Now you know it is. So you don't have to pull this back the entire time when you're attaching it. When you're going to release it, you pull it all the way back, kind of wiggle it a little, wiggle it a little, and it will come off. So again, to attach the line, pull this back, get it positioned over the end of the line, and then just go ahead and push it down the rest of the way. Once it clicks, you know it's solidly on your car. At that point, you can go ahead and turn this valve in. So we're going to turn this clockwise now. And that would go ahead and start that pin in the middle, pushing down on the Schrader valve, boom, and opening the line. So these hoses have refrigerant in them. You know, remember I showed you they had 100 psi. When I turned this in, it went ahead and opened the valve. So one more time, to attach, pull it back. You see right now, if I don't pull it back, it won't go on there. So I'm going to pull it back, push it on just a little ways, and then wait till it clicks. To detach, pull it back, come on. Okay, so we're all set. Now we're going to go ahead and attach it to a car and take a look at some things on the car. That'll be in the next video. Talk to you soon.